Hello everybody, my name is Taylor Scott, and today I'm going to be doing a book review on, drumroll please, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. So this is my third time rereading this book, and I'm rereading it because I plan next to read Hollow City so that I can remember what happened. So without further ado, let me give you a brief synopsis about what this book is about. So basically what happens is there's this kid and his grandfather dies, but his grandfather's been telling him all of these stories about his life living at this manor with these peculiar children that have peculiar abilities. And so Jacob goes on a quest to find answers to his grandfather's stories after his grandfather dies. So that is all I can tell you for the non-spoiler people. So goodbye if you don't want to be spoiled. Go read the book and then come back. And without further ado, let's get into the book review. 2-minute recap in 3, 2, 1. Jacob gets a call from his grandfather, goes to check on his grandfather, finds his grandfather dead, but he also sees something in the forest. Because he sees something in the forest, they recommend he goes to therapy. Now, the therapist tells him that in order to grieve and fully close this chapter of his life, he needs to go to Carnholm, and that is because Grandpa's stories about peculiar children are rooted in Carnholm. So he goes to Carnholm, they stay in the priest hole, and he goes to visit the manor, and he finds that the manor is run down, and then also a day after, we find that sheep have been sliced up, and that's bad. So then he decides to go see the manor again. He finds some pictures, but then the peculiars find him. So because he sees the people in his grandfather's photos in front of him, he decides to chase one of them, Emma, and he chases her into the cairn, and when he comes out of the cairn, he ends up in 1940 because he's gone through the loop. And so after he's gone through the loop, he meets Miss Peregrine. She tells him all about life. He interacts with the locals, and the locals attack him, but it doesn't matter because the loop's going to reset. He sees the loop reset, which is actually really beautiful. Then he goes home, comes back to get rid of suspicion from his dad, sees a peculiar talent show. Then Jacob and Emma go to see a U-boat, and they make out. Then Miss Appleshett shows up, and Miss Applechett's like, look out for hollows and whites because the hollows and whites are coming to take your kids because it's a ploy to take you. And so then Emma, Jacob, Enoch, and Wynn go to investigate in real time, current time, but then they encounter the White and the Hollow. Then the White takes both Miss Avochet and Miss Peregrine. So then Jacob, Emma, Wynn, and Maillard retrieve Peregrine, and they do that by, going with the shield and trying to, get the bird back. And then Peregrine can't turn back into human form, and then they have to loop time because their loop is destroyed because of the White. Boom. Whew. Okay, so the opening line is obviously a favorite moment. Everyone knows it. I had just come to accept that my life would be ordinary when extraordinary things began to happen. I mean, it's an iconic line. Am I right or am I right? The directions to the grandpa's house when Jacob is trying to find his grandfather. He says, turn right at the flamingo orgy and then turn left at the multi-ethnic roof Santas. I was like, wow, that's hilarious. When grandpa is dying, even though he's dying, he tells Jacob, go into the loop, 1940, find the bird. And I'm like, yes, tell him everything he needs to know. Then the bog is an in-between place. It's not water and it's not land. And when I read that, I was like, ooh, Chain of Gold throwback. So go see that book review if you haven't. When Jacob tries to find out what happens and the dude is like, it was the 3rd of September, 1940. I was like, yes, the 3rd of September, 1940. When Jacob wakes up in the priest hole and Miss Peregrine is sitting on him and his dad's like, oh, Peregrines don't usually come out and get this close. And I was like, oh, Peregrine? And then when the peculiar children find him, I'm like, yes, finally, success. He's not looking at an old house anymore. And then, you don't have to do it. Formaldehyde. Ooh, ooh. We mentioned formaldehyde. Ooh, ooh. He goes through the loop. Woo! Finally, the loop. And he gets to see this realm that his grandfather's been talking about for all of his life. It's amazing. When Jacob finds out he is peculiar because he can go through the loop, that was also a really good moment. Now, also, this is one of my favorite moments because of, how crazy it is, right? So when the White interacts with him, and he reveals that he's been a part of Jacob's entire life. He was first the bus driver, and then he was the lawn guy, and the fact that he was the therapist, I was like, wow, it's kind of crazy. It kind of gets in your mind and makes you think, wow, if this was real, Like, they're always around me. Like, it's crazy. It's actually insane. It makes you, trips you up. This is funny, but when Enoch was like, oh, so you're just telling your therapist all of your secrets? So not only have you told this way all of your secrets, but you're crazy too? He says, you're mad to boot. And I was like, wow, what an iconic line. I like it. Then when Jacob and Emma end up back in the shed with sheep dung, even though it's kind of gross, I was like, ooh, full circle. Because at the beginning, Jacob was jokingly coerced into the sheep dung. And so I was like, ah, yes, full circle. And then another thing was when Jacob finally killed the Hollow with his shears, because the shears pierced the Hollow in the eye. I was like, yes, Jacob, you have the stuff. And then we finally rescue Miss Peregrine at the end after all the things that transpire, after the white gets killed, and after they rescue the bird from the U-boat, even though Miss Avochet does not get away. My first yikes moment is when Jacob stopped believing his grandfather's stories. Now, I understand that they're crazy, and he thought that his stories were an allegory for the Holocaust, but it was just really sad because obviously, now that we know what happens, his grandfather was just trying to, protect him and show him about this other realm, so that when his grandfather wasn't able to protect him anymore, Jacob would know somewhere he could go. How his grandfather died was also very sad. It's very sad because had his gun key not been taken away from him, he may have been able to protect himself and maybe wouldn't have died, but then also the story wouldn't have happened. So, I also didn't I was very upset when people kept trying to convince Jacob that he was mentally unsound. I do understand that in a real world, if you were seeing these things and not in a scientific fiction sort of vibes, and a guy said he was seeing a person with snakes out of his mouth, you might think, therapy? But the fact that they were just like, you're crazy, you need to admit that you're crazy, because only when you admit you're crazy will you get help. And they kept looking at him like he was crazy. He was like, obviously, he's had mental toll. Like, when the police officers were like, here you go, here's the sketch. And James was like, well, don't you need the sketch? Like, the fact that they're like, oh, yeah, what was I thinking? I was like, just take the sketch. I didn't like how terrible his mom was. She's just a bad mom, bruh. Like, literally, I know Mother's Day just passed, but she's a bad mom. When her husband and Jacob were going away, she was like to her friends, oh my goodness, thank gosh I can finally have my life back and not have to deal with 2 children. I was like, wow. Do you think, what? No, honey, no, that's bad parenting. Jacob's dad told him that Grandpa Portman was having an affair. We end up learning that wasn't really an affair, it was just Emma, because Grandpa Portman told Emma he'd come back for her. Never did that, but it was very upsetting because obviously Jacob looked up to Grandpa Portman and he was like, if Grandpa Portman's not noble and honest and moral, then who could be? And I was like, no. Then, okay, this is controversial, but when Jacob and Emma are kissing, I was like, dude, your grandfather dated her. How can you kiss her? Ew? No. There are a bunch of other peculiars in the sea. Okay, so I think there weren't that many shake the table moments, but there were 3 that I want to talk about. So, number 1, when Jacob was like, I can't discover anything. Everything else has already been discovered. I was like, lol. And I think this was shaking the table. Because if we think about it, a lot of things that were quote unquote discovered were not actually discovered. Because you can't discover, technically, land if someone else lives on that land. I think Ransom was talking about how certain explorers discovered certain continents and they have their own day. Why am I using quotes for day? They have their own day when really they discovered nothing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, read an unbiased history book. My next shake the table moment was when Jacob said, it's easy not to care about money when you have plenty of it. And I was like, yes, you are so right. Because he wasn't worried about money. And I was like, well, see, not everybody has your ability to not care about money. And the fact that he recognized that, I feel, was the first step to changing the system. And so I'm happy that Ransom Riggs included that. And then number 3, even though I feel we really don't hear much of to the extent of what we saw in this book, a therapist is not gonna try to kill you and all of your friends. You feel me, right? But like when you think about it, a therapist knows a lot of information about you. I mean, your therapist knows your tics, your history, things that you hold emotionally close to you, anything that could cause you to be emotionally, mentally, physically, or any of those sorts of things to be unstable in those capacities. And so Ransom Riggs was like, we need to be vetting these therapists to make sure that they're not going to misuse this information, or to make sure that they're not, bad people. And I think that was important. Basically, the first thing I noticed as a huge sign, obviously I've read this book before, but when Jacob is rolling up to his grandpa's house to see if his grandpa's okay, and the guy in his grandpa's neighborhood has milky white eyes, I was like, ooh, this is suspicious. And he was looking at the guy like there's a picture. Like, the pictures are also a really cool aspect of this. I forgot to mention that in favorite moments, but I love the pictures. When I was just like, wow, sus. So then the next thing was, this ended up not proving to be anything, but when Martin was well-spoken and Jacob was like, there's a well-spoken man on this island. How peculiar. But, like, he ended up dying. I don't know if he ended up dying because he was secretly peculiar, because, like, of all people to kill Martin, I was like, yeah, maybe he was actually peculiar and was trying to dissuade him. But it doesn't matter because he's dead. The next thing, when I was a detective, when Dr. Golan was like, I'm at the airport to pick up my sister. And in my head, I'm like, but are you? Are you really, though? I don't trust that. I don't. When the sheep are slaughtered. Now, I think this is a moment to be a detective, because as we later found out, that a lot of times hollows and whites, in order to sustain themselves, will eat like regular humans and animals, even though they prefer peculiars. So the moment that Jacob found that information, I would have said, yo, a bunch of sheep have just been slaughtered. There's probably a hollow and a white on this island. I feel like he should have recognized that and told Miss Peregrine, because it's obviously it's not a huge leap to be like, oh, there's probably a hollow and white on the island. And then last but not least, when the new ornithologist that showed up was wearing shades, I was like, ooh. And he was always wearing shades. He was wearing shades at night. I was like, ooh, he is obviously a white, okay? It's so obvious to me. But of course, hindsight is 20/20, or as my friend would say, hindsight is 1. My predictions for the next book are that obviously the peculiars are gonna loop hop. Hopefully none of them get too old and die. Hopefully Peregrine turns back into human form. I think she does, because there's 2 or 3 more books in this series, so it wouldn't make sense if she was a bird for the rest of it. And yeah, they're gonna have to find out where they're planning on doing this huge reaction again with the rest of the inbrains, and they're gonna need to stop that. So yeah. Alright guys, this concludes my book review. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please let me know what you thought in the comments. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and click that bell notification so you won't miss out on when I post. I'm going to try to make my posting more regular. Now that I'm out of school, we'll hope that happens, and I'm going to be trying really hard to make sure I get it out at a constant pace. So yeah, see you guys next time. Bye-bye.